Hello everybody. Today I am going to paint this cool peach. So if you have done the apple painting tutorials either on Facebook, which is Stamps and Books, or YouTube, you will have much easier time doing this because this is very similar except the spots and some of the parts, like right here, a little bit more innies than outies. So I'm placing my subject on the side, and then I am going to paint this on a 5x7. I'm using watercolor, and this brush is number 6. I have two different types of paint. One is blocks, one is supposedly liquid, which I love this paint. It's Van Gogh, and this is already dry, but I still use those, so pretty much it's like using blocks. And let's start. I'm gonna kind of activate my paint by adding a little bit of water, and when I do that, I kind of rub it over and clean it if there was something left from previous time painting. So to start painting something like a peach, what colors do we have? We have orangey and really nice red, dark red color, almost like a purplish red right here. So what we're gonna do is we're pretty much gonna start with all the light colors, because that light color also is present even on the darker sides, because the darker sides are more like spotty, so that color is present even here. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with the lightest color that is present here, and that is kind of like an orangey yellow, and I would like to make it light, and I'm gonna add a little bit of white because it will make it more like a peachy color. So I am starting on wet on dry, and I'm just going to kind of give a little bit of an outline to one of my peaches. Then I'm gonna water my brush to not really clean it, and I'm gonna go over and I'll add this color, and my paint that I just applied on the edges is not dried yet, so that kind of helps the paint to float. So if you see it's a little bit darker than my subject, that's okay, because now we're gonna get a little bit more yellow, and I am going to start applying that. And a lot of times I'll remove the pencil marks almost completely, but in this case I wanted to leave it so you guys kind of can see what I'm doing, because if I delete them completely, the pencil marks will actually not be visible for you at all. And because I'm applying the lightest color, my borders are kind of merging together. So I'm not worried. I'm not even worried going in the center, because that's where the little stem is, and it's a darker color. So if it starts getting in there, the darker color is going to cover it up. So I'm not worried. I would be worried if my darker color starts seeping into places where I want to keep it light. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start applying, and you see it's wet on wet at this point. So whatever I'm applying, the paint's gonna start moving around. which can make it very, very easy. And where the paint is not going into very wet places, I can go in and add a little bit more. But the beautiful thing for the peach when you're doing wet on wet is it creates this spill of the paint around, which helps. And I did not tape my paper, so it's buckling a little bit, but I'm not worried. Adding a little bit more right here. This is a beautiful orange color. So later on, I'm gonna go in with a darker color and start adding little spots to the peach. But I cannot do that now because if I do it, they're going to kind of disappear. And I want to clean one area a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do is I'm taking a clean brush and wiping some of the paint. And I can erase some of that pencil later too. Okay, so I'm going to go for the darker color, but only right here. You see how that beautifully goes into the other color. It creates a cloud. And that's it. So I'm gonna leave it alone. Once this dries, I'm gonna go back in and I can work on the stem a little bit, and I can start adding a little bit more details, like the little spots that are present on the peach. And I am going to do this side so it's further away from my number one. I'm gonna go back to yellow. So I'm adding the lightest color, so peachy yellow. Yellow with a little bit, tiny bit of orange. So that's my lightest color. I'm not doing this yet because I really want to keep that line perfect between those two. And now I'm dropping in the color here. And I'll just let it happen. A little bit of darker color and just leave it alone. And even if we're looking at this way, it already looks great. So but we want to add more details, we want to work on the shadow, but until then, until it dries, I cannot touch it, and I don't want to touch it to ruin this. So we're gonna leave it alone and we'll come back to it in a little bit. All right, we are dry, so now we can continue with this little guy here. And again, I'm starting with a light color. Just taking a little water and getting it wet. grabbing a little bit of brown and just adding it. I already added a tiny bit of purple here, so now I'm gonna add a little bit of brown and creating those spots that are on the peach. I'm using wet on dry, but then I'm adding a little bit of water and I'm kind of doing it a little bit more controlled. Just to let's turn it the way this was. My pencil marks are helping me just to emphasize on where the edge between light and dark is, but I'm still kind of using my brush to not cover everything completely, but kind of pounce it on the canvas. A little bit of brown right here. I'm gonna get a little black and brown together and I'll add a little bit of blue to that. I'll wash my brush slightly so it's not wet, it's not dripping wet. I'll use it kind of to take some of that dark paint around and put it where I want. I'm gonna take a little more brown. And now I can go to this little guy and add this darker spots right here. Then take a little orange without washing my brush. So now I'm gonna add few of the little bit lighter. Take a little water on my brush. And some of the edges that I feel like they're a little bit too sharp, I'm gonna just gently touch with water so it gives them a little softer look. Just manipulating the paint. Let's go back to this guy. It's the Darkseid. Let's add a little bit of that right here. Wash my brush, take just red and kind of go close to the dark side but not touch it yet, and I'll show you what I will do. Flip this around just to be more comfortable, and now with my tip I'm going to push some of the red into the dark, not everywhere, which will soften the edge and will take those two colors to kind of gently merge together. little more red. And just get that red a little higher. And every time you see an edge that you're not super happy with it, you can go back and add water or take it away. And what I'm doing is I am just trying to add a little water on the areas that I did not put paint. So I'm stilling some of the surrounding paint, but not completely, so it still leaves a spot there. Just moving paint around. Let's go to this little guy here and then wipe my brush and just from a soft pressure to medium to hard pressure. It really depends on what I want to see, because if I have more pressure, obviously we are going to, let me get paint, soft pressure, medium, hard pressure. So I have little pulls between soft and medium, and then by the way are the colors that I'm using, and this one is kind of a mixture a little bit between those two. Let's get a little dark right at the shadow side, because that's going to help us when we put our shadow not to look too foreign there. So I know that now it looks dark, but once we add the shadow, everything's going to tie together. I'm kind of washing my brush and wiping it, but I'm leaving some of that color, and what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of that darker color right here. Then I'm gonna go to this guy, and I can turn it around, which sometimes could be a dangerous thing because you can start putting highlights on places you don't want them. But I think since I have done those two, my brain is already working in the right direction, so I am kind of observing what's happening right here and trying to repeat it. So it's really nice when you paint, especially fruit, to do few at the same time, because that is kind of like a 3-time to practice. Let's get a little orange. Too much. So I'm gonna wash my brush and steal some of the paint and distribute. Brown, right here, blackish brown, a tiny bit of blue, and just drop a color there. It's very insignificant, that little drop of color, so it's not going to change much. Let's get a little darker, purplish red. And just apply it right at this corner right here. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in here, and because my color is a little less wet, I'm gonna pull that dark, and I'm making sure I'm kind of keeping the shape of this. my light source is coming from, like around 1 o'clock. Let's take a little more like red. So I'm gonna wash this a little bit. Just red. Let's get the red a little orangey red. There you go. So I mixed my red with a little bit of orange, so it gave me a softer version of that red. So do you see how this is a little bit darker? So I dried my brush and I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna push my brush down and not take it completely, but kind of make it a little spottier. And now it's the time for our shadow. I know this area is pretty dry, so I'm starting my shadow from right underneath, and I am doing a purplish shadow. Let's add a little brown and black in it, just right underneath. And then I'm going to water my brush and kind of get the shadow away from our peach and pull it out. So go back to this dark color and add it again in areas where I feel like it needs to be a little bit darker. And then we're going to go back to this guy right here. And the same, I'm going to add it just a little bit right here. So pulling this shadow out. Taking a little bit of brownish black. And some of that edge between the shadow, I will touch up, and it's going to go upwards into my object and then downwards it's going to spread. Take a little blue, lighter blue, and what I'm gonna do is I'll just make myself a kind of like a table ground for my peach. So I added the color, now I'm adding water. You can do wet on wet. I feel like I will want more control over this, so I'm adding the paint just here and then I'm adding the water after. And just pulling the paint. Because I want not to get too much paint to be barely visible. So I'm going to just steal the paint from here and kind of distribute it to the areas I want. And I drip water, so that is something I don't want to have. So I just dabbed it with a tissue. A little more paint right here. Water. And pretty much using this paint almost that I have applied as a palette in a way. You don't have to do this, you can just apply paint, but I want it to be so subtle. You can just apply a very little bit of paint. And sometimes what I do with my paintings is I will put them on top of a hard surface and I will iron it, and then I'll put it, so I will make it almost like a hot press, and I'll put it under something when I don't tape my or prepare my paper in advance. And it doesn't bother me when it buckles a little bit, because I do like actually seeing that. So it's really a personal preference. I added a little bit more blue right here, so I'm kind of marrying the picture together, and also I'm going to add a little bit of blue into this area right here. And we don't want it too much here, we just want it to be a suggestion. And pretty much we can leave it just like that. So that is our peach. Now that peach could be an apple. So what makes the peach different from the apple is, and this one does not really have that really distinct line here, but it's slight. So I am going to emphasize on that line just to make sure whoever is looking at that is thinking peach, not apple. So I'm going to go in and emphasize on that. The same thing here. I will go in and emphasize on that line. Even though we don't see it in our subject, we're kind of the boss of our art, so we can do slight corrections if something doesn't look right. So let's get a little blue, drop it right here. Leave that alone. I'm going to get a little blue and kind of round it right here. Take the red and delete it a little bit. Also, I'm extending that part tiny bit because that gives me a different shape for our peach. And now our peach looks more peachy. I need to wait for this to dry, so I'm gonna push back our paint because this area was wet and it's merging into the background. So this is what you want to be patient about it. You really want to wait for it a little bit, and I was very impatient. So that's okay, because I will fix it. And it's good that sometimes I do things like that, so you guys can see that even somebody who has painted for evers and evers still does things that not necessarily they're happy about it, and then how can we fix it? So I am getting a little bit of this here, and that's gonna work. So I'm gonna give it a break, because the same thing happened right on the top, and these are all fixable things, so we're not gonna scrap this, we are going to try to fix it. So I'm going to take some of that and push it back with a clean tissue, and I'll let it dry. So I have taken a little bit more off from here than I wanted to, but that's okay, because once this dries a little, we're gonna be more in control. And get a little lighter yellow and add it right here, and again kind of specks. It is so windy outside that it's knocking all the plants. I'm gonna go in and add little specks. Let's add a little orange here. So there's always something to touch and fix, all the way till we decide not to touch it anymore. worried about this because that's going to get fixed. Okay, this seems a little drier, so let's fix this. And pretty much emphasize on the shape of the peach, the two parts that merge together, and add spots. Take just water and soften the edge that I just added. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. So I'm using the darker red. Which is a combination with purple and red. We're gonna have to put a new shadow here after it dries a little bit. But do you see by me adding this line here how now it looks more peachy? Same thing here. Moved it way down. And this is a good way to see what happens when something doesn't go 100% the way you want it. Washing my brush because the difference between this and this is too big, so I'm gonna go and push on a clean brush in some of those areas, which will kind of help create some of the spots that I took away. And that looks great. I'm going to get a little dark and just drop it right here. Perfect. Now this line. Wow, it's so windy outside. With a little bit of lighter version of brown, so you can lighten it with a tiny bit of white, or you can just use the, what are we using? Ochre, the yellow ochre with our brown. It will give us a really nice brown. I am adding a little bit of that in the red, which makes it again peachy. Okay, so let's add back the shadow, but I can see it. This is not completely dry. So I'm going to start from further away, not the shadow. So it's going to start mixing with our water. Want to delete a little bit of that. Perfect. perfect line here. So I'm using water. Take away some of that perfect line here. Okay, so we can leave it this way. And if we want to sign, we're going to sign with, I'm loading my brush pretty much only on the tip of the brush and gently touching the paper napkin just to make sure it's not a ton of water left. And I will sign it. Darkseid. All right, I hope you enjoyed this, and if you did, please don't forget to give us thumbs up, and we'll see you next time. Bye.